Assalamu alaikum. This is Bishart Ali, student of Sindh University campus Larkana from the Department of Business Administration. My roll number is 17 and this is a semester presentation of subject Business Law and Taxation, which I am submitting to Ma'am Shagufta Sheikh. My presentation is contains on four very important topics, including negotiable instrument, difference between agreement and contract, elements of contract, tax, and its types. So the first question is negotiable instrument. What is negotiable instrument? First of all, we should know that this is an act which was implemented on 1st March 1882. The purpose for implementing the act negotiable instrument was trade and commerce, means it was implemented for merchandise purpose. The word negotiable means transferable. Here it doesn't mean that it is related with negotiation, but a thing which can be transferred. And the word instrument means a written document. Here it gives a meaning, a written document which can be further negotiated, which can be further transferred. Now the question is, how many times we can negotiate this negotiable instrument? So the answer is we can negotiate it as much as we want. Means it depends on its maturity. As long as its maturity duration demands, we can negotiate it till its maturity duration. Now, for example, its maturity duration is 3 months. We can negotiate it so many times in these 3 months. And now, what we include in it and what we exclude from the negotiable instrument. So it is very important to know, and it's quite easy to know. The best way to know is we have to remember 3 sanctions: promissory note, bills of exchange, and a check. These 3 sanctions we have to remember. Now, can you guess that in which sanction the definition of negotiable instrument comes? Because we have seen majority of acts that the definition always come in section 2 in majority of case, but the definition of negotiable instrument is given in section 30, and these 3 sanctions, promissory note, bills of exchange, check, are include we can include it in negotiable instrument, and we have to remember this. The second question that I have seen so many students ask this question, even I am a student, that can we call a currency note a negotiable instrument? Because it's written on the currency note that I will pay the bearer is sum of rupees 100. Even negotiable instrument would be payable to bearer or order. Now the question is, who is bearer and order? The bearer is one who has possession of that instrument, and order is one whom's order that instrument can be further negotiated. Now let's move back to the question that can we call negotiable instrument. A currency note is a negotiable instrument. So we have to always remember that the currency note is not a negotiable instrument. Furthermore, treasury bills, post office, money orders are not included in negotiable instrument. Means these are the things that are not included in negotiable instrument. That means we can exclude them. They are excluded from negotiable instrument. See, on the basis of their usage, you might be thinking that these are negotiable instrument, but on the as per the act, we can't include these things in negotiable instrument. I hope the first question has been clear. Now let's move to the second question. The second question of my presentation is difference between agreement and contract. These terms agreement and contract are used interchangeably, but legally speaking they are two different things. An agreement is simply an understanding or arrangement between two or more parties, while a contract is a specific agreement with terms and conditions that are enforceable. Code means terms conditions that are enforceable by law. An agreement is informal arrangement, usually unwritten, between two or more parties. An agreement can't be enforceable in court through litigation because it lacks the elements of contract. On the other hand, a contract is a formal arrangement between two or more parties and that is enforceable either in court or through arbitration. It's, a, it's an exchange of goods or services for consideration, which is usually money but can be anything of value, is required for arrangement to be legally binding. Parties can be sued for failure to meet the obligations of a contract. For example, you offer to let your friends stay at your house while they are in your town. That's an agreement because there is no any exchange of consideration for staying at your house, and there are no certain terms and conditions written out for them to comply with. So your friends cannot sue you if you change your mind and making them pay for a hotel. But if your friends gives you a deposit and agrees to pay you $50 per night for staying at your house, that's a contract because there is exchange of services. $50 per night is a consideration for staying at your house. So if you accepted their payment and did not let them staying at your house, your friends can sue you. They can go to court and they can sue you, and a judge may conceivably order you to pay them costs associated with their hotel stay or let them stay at your house. So this is the main difference, that agreement is just offer plus acceptance, but contract is agreement plus enforceability of law. That's the main difference. I hope the doubt has been cleared. Now let's move to the third question. So the third question of my presentation is elements of contract. There are four elements of contract: agreement, consideration, contractual capacity, lawful objective. Now let's move to the first element, that is agreement. An agreement is an understanding or arrangement between two or more parties regarding their future performances. An agreement is informal, usually unwritten, between two or more persons, and it's not enforceable in court through litigation. And every contract would be agreement, but every agreement is not a contract. These examples which are written out there will show us that how every agreement is not a contract, but every contract is an agreement. For example, you invite your friend for dinner and your friend accepts it as invitation. This is an agreement, however not a contract, because it does not create legal obligation between the parties. And second example is you offer your friend to buy your house for consideration of $50,000 and your friend accept the offer by paying the same consideration for your bungalow to you. Second example shows us that there is difference between both examples. In agreement we don't have any consideration, we don't have any legal obligation, but in second example it shows us that it has exchange of consideration, also legal obligation. That's why second example is example of contract, because it has consideration plus legal obligation. But in first example we don't have any kind of these things. So this is how every agreement is not a contract, but every contract is agreement. Now let's move to the second element, that is consideration. Consideration means something in return for goods or services or some other promises. Means both the parties must get something in return for the promise. Means if one party is selling their land, obviously they will receive certain amount in return. That certain amount in return is actually a consideration. Consideration is a basic thing for what a party enters into a contract. Consideration is a benefit that every party receives or expects to receive when entering into a contract. Okay, and every valid contract will have consideration for both the parties. For example, you offer your friend to buy your bungalow for $1 lakh and your friend accept the offer by paying the same consideration for your bungalow. Here we can see that $1 lakh is consideration for your bungalow and your bungalow is consideration for $1 lakh to your friend. So both the parties are receiving consideration. The third element of contract is contractual capacity. Contractual capacity refers to a legal ability to enter into a contract. Means it refers to the party's legal ability to enter into a contract. Means it requires both the parties. Entering into a contract, both the parties must be mentally capable in order for the contract to be legally binding. If the parties are not mentally fit, they cannot, create such contract. So, a person must be able to make a legally binding declaration of intent and writing. Example, a notice of termination or declaration of withdrawal. Okay, means contractual capacity requires mental capability plus the person should be mature. Also, he should be above 18. Then he is able to create such contract. Okay, and fourth element is lawful object. Lawful object, the object of an agreement must be lawful. It must not be immoral, opposed to public policy, or illegal, like kidnapping or anything else. It should be means pure legal. If it will not be legal, then the contract will not be valid. Okay, for example, Amar or anyone else offer someone to kidnap somebody, and he will pay a certain amount to the person who will kidnap that person. So it shows us that kidnapping is not a lawful object. Kidnapping is illegal. So these kinds of things should not be involved in a contract. But a lawful object means land, and land also should be legal. Then it will be a lawful object. Okay, I hope the question has been clear. Now let's move to the fourth question, which is tax and its types. Now the fourth question, what is tax and its types? So tax is a fee imposed on every individual, companies, organizations by government to run its programs and services. Government imposed tax to generate its revenue. To run its programs means it provides such facilities and pay salaries to the government officers. It is actually revenue of our own country. If our country will have a good revenue, then of course our country will much develop and infrastructure will be better by spending that revenue on that infrastructure. So economists categorize tax into two categories, direct and indirect. So direct taxes are those taxes that we pay directly without any source, but indirect taxes are those which needs any intermediary source for to be paid. Okay, so we will discuss these in little bit detail. Actually, there are so many types of tax, but we will discuss the main types of taxes. So direct taxes include corporate tax and capital gain tax. Corporate tax, it is imposed on net profit of the enterprises. Means whatever net profit income a company or enterprise will generate, they will have to pay tax on that. That tax will be known as corporate tax. Okay, and second is capital gain tax. Tax payable on profit made on sale of certain assets of companies by companies and individuals. Means if any company is selling shares, share is also asset, or property, anything, whatever profit they will generate from the price of that asset, they will have to give tax on that income. That tax will be known as capital gain tax. Now, the indirect tax includes service tax and sales tax. Service tax, it is divided on transaction of certain specified services, means service providers. On service providers, this tax is you know imposed by the government. And sales tax, it is tax that you pay almost every day uh, on every purchase of your product. Even you when you eat anything on restaurant, you will have to pay sales tax on that dinner or whatever you are having. So this was my presentation. I have given my best. So thank you very much.